Chapter 18 Epilogue. Man is a becoming, an ongoing process, as is obvious from the fact that his life is characterized by a search. A search which is continual, constant, desperate, and almost hopeless. His being is obsessed with a deep urge to seek something. What is that something? He knows not. His state of mind is characterized by a perpetual dissatisfaction. Frustration appears to be the destiny of the human race because whatsoever it seeks becomes meaningless the very moment it is achieved. Unable to bear the meaninglessness, man starts searching again. This search continues whether one gets anything or not. What one seeks becomes irrelevant. The poor are searching, the rich are searching more. The powerless are searching, and the powerful are more desperately searching. The stupid are seeking, while the wise are seeking frantically. And nobody knows exactly what one wants. There appears to be a gap, a kind of black hole in the very structure of human consciousness. No matter what it pursues and achieves after much effort, the very thing sought gets drawn into it and disappears without trace. The search usually never gives any sense of fulfillment, but only increases the unquenchable thirst. It is a feverish search, seeking things of this world and of the other world. Unless and until we understand this search and why it is there, life becomes meaningless. The most important characteristic of this search is that it does not allow us to be in here now, because the search always leads us somewhere else. The search is a project, it is a desire, and a desire is characterized by a state of being dissatisfied with where one is. Desire presupposes that the thing sought is somewhere else. It exists in then and there and never now here. We keep changing the thing, money, power, and prestige, sometimes God, bliss, love, meditation, prayer, and pilgrimage. But the search continues to the point of exhaustion, even madness. It is said about a great Sufi woman mystic, Rabia al-Adwaya. One evening, people found her searching for something on the road. She was an old woman. Her eyes had become weak. But since the people loved her, they came to her aid. When they inquired as to what she was searching, she told them she was searching for her needle. Everyone who was passing by joined the search. After a while, a young man, realizing that such a small thing could never be traced unless the exact spot it had fallen was shown, asked her. Nonchalantly, she replied that it had fallen in her hut. The crowd laughed at this and observed the pointlessness of the search in a wrong place. Waiting for the crowd to become silent and receptive, the mystic replied with a glint in her eyes that she was searching outside, since it was dark inside while there was light outside. This parable is very significant as far as human search is concerned. We seldom ask as to what we are searching. At least, Rabia knew she was in search for her needle. From the very fact that our goals become meaningless the moment they are achieved, it is obvious that what we are searching is not external, though we helplessly search for it outside, as we can perceive the objects by our senses. The search must be for something else. These labels of money, power, and prestige never satisfy the mind. They are only props for convincing ourselves that we are searching for something, but that something is vague and undefined. The first thing for a real seeker who has become alert and aware is to understand this search in a very clear-cut way. And surprisingly, all she or he has to do is to increase this alertness, this awareness, and it becomes clear on its own. He discovers that the search exists only in sleep, metaphysical sleep, only in unawareness. Rabia's observation has a great truth in it. Inside there is no light. It is all dark because of unawareness, owing to which we feel that outside is more perceptible due to our outgoing senses. The one who seeks is inside, but because of light outside, the seeker starts moving outside ambiguously for things which can never fulfill his thirst. Unless we have first understood and known the seeker, our entire search is meaningless. That's why, in spite of our so-called development, the humanity as such is still in anguish, which cause wars, discontent and misery. Upanishads and other Vedantic literature, or spirituality in general, ask us to set our priorities and proceed in a systematic way. Unless and until we realize that we should really seek, life becomes pointless and a waste in spite of our achievement and success. The question of how one can proceed from a common level of understanding to the subtler levels always haunts a seeker. Existence has broadly three dimensions: the objective, the subjective, and the transcendental. Objective is the dimension of material things, which are perceptible to the senses. Everyone is able to experience this dimension, the most obvious one. The senses and the mental activity responsible for gathering the sense data, which has been called manas, can open only outward, due to which we are almost always are obsessed by the objective world. All our desires and dreams and thoughts are governed by this world of objects. This is the world of science and technology, governed by the senses, the world of pleasure and pain, of the dvandvas, the opposites. All our efforts are towards knowing and improving this dimension of existence. Our relationships, transactions, and behavior are dominated by this dimension, so much so we treat our friends and relations as things, which is evident from the possessiveness that dominates our transactions. Paradoxically, everyone abhors the feeling that he or she is being treated as a thing, which strains and sours our relationships. Many, if not most of us, have stopped at this, nay, totally overpowered and dominated by this dimension. Even God for us is an object because God is outside. We approach God for solving our external needs and the related problems. Thus, God is used by us as an object of utility. However, this dimension is only a beginning of a long journey, hence the anguish. Unless he changes this dimension, man remains the same whether he is a theist or an atheist. There are some others who have or can develop the capacity to observe this world of matter dispassionately. They are the scientists and the inventors. Through their objective study, they try to explain the phenomena, and their discoveries and inventions make life more comfortable for the common lot. For them, however, consciousness is an epiphenomenon, because consciousness as such cannot be explained. Many times, in spite of the dispassionate observation, the scientist suffers from the same limitations, the same madness as the common mass of people. A scientist lives with things as he is aware of things and the physical world surrounding him. For him, A rose is a combination of various organic and aromatic compounds, which is nothing but a specimen for dissection. For a doctor, a patient is not a person but only a sick body requiring treatment. The scientists are very proficient in their chosen field but are totally unaware of who they are. The more a scientist gets involved with things near and far, the less aware he is of himself. Beyond the objective, there opens another dimension, the subjective. We have the world of emotions and feelings, thoughts and reactions. Many of us are quite unconscious of this and just react to the external situations and conditions, almost like automatons. Any external situation can disturb or influence us and elicit unconscious reactions because we are obsessed by the objective dimension. The subjective is not obvious and has to be consciously explored, since man is aware of only the external. In fact, one has to learn how to experience the subjective dimension. The world of music or poetry and literature, of art and of any kind of creativity is the subjective dimension. A person who starts moving inwards becomes aesthetic and creative. The poet, the painter, and the musician are closer to home than those involved with the material world. The creativity many times is a personal response to the stimuli of the external world. The painter tries to manifest it through colors, the musician through notes, and the poet through words and syllables. Poets and artists live with persons having emotions, dreams, and feelings. In this sense, creative persons live a private life. By becoming aware of the subjective dimension of thoughts, emotions, and feelings, we enhance this dimension. These, the objective and the subjective, are within the range of experience of most of us, are the two realms of existence. The subjective is a step towards spirituality, that is, from things to thoughts and feelings. We must, however, remember that by only being subjective or creative, we do not enter the spiritual realm. Just as there is the danger of getting stuck to the objective, there is this possibility of getting involved and stuck with the subjective. We have many instances of poets and painters, and for that matter, philosophers losing themselves in this dimension. That is where the third dimension opens up, the transcendental. It goes beyond both, neither objective nor subjective. It is neither external nor internal. In it, both are implied and included, yet it is higher and greater than both by being beyond both the dimensions. Upanishads try to take the seeker from the objective and subjective realms to the transcendental realm. Their beauty lies in the fact that they suggest means and methods to make use of these very realms to transcend them. Our rishis always believed in the methodology of going from known to the unknown. All of us, without exception, experience the objective, and many of us are aware of the subjective realm. Being very compassionate, our rishis never negated these two dimensions. Instead, they accepted these realms as the steps to enter the unknown and discovered the means and methods to use them to transcend and go beyond them. The details of their experiments, the experiences they had thereby, form the subject matter of all Vedantic literature in general and the Upanishads in particular. The greatness of the Upanishads lies in the fact that if we conduct the experiments under the conditions explained by them, we too can experience the transcendental, or more precisely, recollect the transcendental which is always there. The Upanishads point out that due to our indulgence with the objective and involvement with the subjective, we have forgotten the most obvious, ever-present consciousness. All that is required of us is lightening this grip over the objective and the subjective, and we become open to the state characterized by total existence, awareness, bliss, Sat Chit Ananda. There is a beautiful Sufi story. A man was arrested for a crime he had not committed and was placed in a high tower with only a window. There was no way except the window at a height of about 100 feet. He was at a loss to even think of the next course of action. But his friend thought of a plan to help him escape from the tower that very night. Since the tower was inaccessible, there were no guards around, and he had all the time at his disposal. He tied a silken thread to the mid portion of a beetle and smeared a little honey to its antler. He placed the beetle on the vertical wall facing it to the window above. Attracted by the honey on its own antler, it started moving and reached the window. The victim, seeing the beetle, peeped out to behold his friend. Catching hold of the silken thread, he released the beetle and started pulling up the thread, at the end of which a thicker thread was attached. On pulling up the thread, he found a thin rope, which was again attached to the thin rope which was capable of taking his weight. Tying the rope to the window, he came down to escape from the prison. The Upanishads suggest almost a similar approach to rediscover the transcendental awareness which is available in all the normal day-to-day transactions and experiences. They goad the seeker to be more and more aware of objective dimensions during the transactions at the objective plane. After learning to observe the experiences and the reactions thereof, they assure us that we can gradually enter the subjective dimension. The master key, the Upanishads declare, is the art of becoming aware of the activities of antakarana, the mind stuff, like gathering and rejecting the sense data, analysis and decision making, recollection of previous impressions, and ahankara. One of the most luminous beacons to guide the seekers to handle the objective and the subjective dimension and to enter the transcendental is Paramahamsa Sri Ramakrishna. He relates the spiritual practice with daily experiences and God with most intimate of human relationships. Even the most stubborn of the human limitations, like anger and lust, he said, can be eliminated if they are directed to God. One learns from the Paramahamsa openness of mind, total absence of fanaticism, courage to experiment, and humility, all of which are mandatory for treading the life spiritual. If one carefully goes through his teachings, one is amazed to discover that there are such practical gems which not only dissolve all the problems but also help the seeker to learn the art of antarmukhata. Though Paramahamsa opted to remain a bhakta, his approach is one of integration of bhakti, love, and jnana, wisdom. Through love, he leads the seeker to the state of jnana. Bhakti involves the dissolution of antakarana, I, consciousness, by subservience to God or the chosen deity. Sri Ramakrishna takes the seeker gradually from the objective to the subjective dimension to bring in the transcendental awareness. Having learned this wonderful technique of antarmukhata, it becomes comparatively easy to practice the Upanishadic methodology of vichara. Vichara is a process of non-involved and non-judgmental observation of the activity at both objective as well as subjective dimensions as described by the Upanishads. Through such observation, one discovers that the dimensions per se have the I-ness as their root cause and are its manifestations. Out of all the methods suggested by the Upanishads, the method taught by Maharshi Sri Ramana happens to be the most direct and effective. The method of self-inquiry, as taught by Bhagwan Ramana Maharshi, is so revolutionary for one who has achieved antarmukhata that she or he starts wondering how it could possibly be missed. Maharshi Ramana suggested the seeker to seek the origin of aham vritti, the I thought. In a verse composed by him, he gives out clearly the whole method in a few lines. Hridaya kuhara madhye kevalam brahma matram hyahamiti sakshat atma rupena bhati hridi visha manasa svam chinvata majjatava pavana chalana rodhat atmanishto bhavatvam. Sri Ramana Gita. In the interior of the heart cave, Brahman alone shines in the form of Atman with direct immediacy as I. Enter into the heart with questing mind, or by diving deep within, or through control of breath, and abide in the Atman. Paramhamsa Sri Ramakrishna repeatedly proclaimed that none is nearer to us than God, that He is our own. Bhagwan Ramana Maharshi declared that he or the Brahman is manifest as I in each one of us. They directly or indirectly tell the seeker that in our seeking we have unsuccessfully gone away from Him who dwells as our inner self. In his autobiography of a yogi, Paramahamsa Yogananda writes about Saint Kabir, the creedless master. In his youth, Kabir was approached by two disciples who wanted minute intellectual guidance along the mystic path. The master responded simply, "Path presupposes distance. If he be near, no path needest thou at all. Verily it maketh me smile to hear of a fish in water thirsty." We have come a long way from the truth we are desperately seeking in objects, relationships. Moving away from the self within us, we have lost ourselves in the things and persons. All that is required of us is to turn around and behold the truth within. All great masters hold the hands of seekers, approaching them and help them to relax into the state of unalloyed by duality, the state of Advaita, the state of no otherness, which is our most natural state.